Redbox Business Solutions CEO Seana Fippin joins this week to break down news from Connectwise, Ingram Micro, and OpenText, and how to hold successful virtual meetings, plus a special guest interview with Abe Garver and Willis Cantey on the MSP M&A market. It's ChannelPro Weekly number 206. Start your engines. Hello and welcome to ChannelPro Weekly episode 206. My name is Matt Whitlock, technology editor, online director, and your host of this program for people like you, the VARs, the MSPs, the IT integrators, the IT consultants, the MSSPs, the whatever the heck you want to call yourself. You can call yourself a lot of things. The gist is you do technology services and solutions for other businesses. If that describes you, you are in the right place. And if that does not describe you, say, for example, you are a clown at a local circus, hey, you know what? You might learn something and have a lot of fun anyway. So thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. Joining me this week and every week is our man of the hour, the executive editor here at ChannelPro, the guy who makes all this amazing stuff happen, Mr. Rich Friedman. Welcome, Rich.
Hi, Matt. You know, I'm actually, folks watching on video can see I'm in a hotel room again. I'm actually attending a circus clown conference this week. I thought we were going after that audience.
Well, that's our next market that we needed to try to engage. But I thought, you know, clowns, they're a tough nut to crack because, you know, they all kind of have their own thing. So I was thinking we should go after like the lion tamers first, because they're probably looking to get out of being mauled by lions.
Interesting point. Yeah, could be a small and shrinking population, but maybe not.
maybe not. The ones who are in the big cages with the bears, they're also at risk. I think we should lump them all together into that group and make them our next market. So, folks, Rich is on the road. He's at a hotel. His video is a little smudgy. We're gonna hope, and we've done everything we possibly can to get him connected, and hopefully his video stays somewhat good and his audio stays clear. So we're gonna cross both fingers and just proceed forward that we don't lose him. So don't get lost, okay, Rich?
I will do my best.
Okay, that's what I can only hope. So I'm also excited. We are not alone today. We have a guest, someone who's never been on before. So I'm super excited to have her here with us. She's been at some of our shows that we've had, presented some of those. So excellent stuff. You remember those MSPs and IT consultants that we were talking about, Rich? She happens to own one of those. Isn't that pretty cool? So she's the founder and CEO of Redbox Business Solutions. They're a concierge-level managed service provider exceeding the technical needs of San Francisco Bay Area businesses. She serves as the city of Brentwood as a planning commissioner. That's pretty cool. President of the Rotary Club of Brentwood, is a member of the 20 MSP and the Council of Businesses Advisors. Please welcome Seana Fippin. Welcome, Seana.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Matt. Good to see you and Rich. Thank you for having me.
It's great to see you. It's great you're finally able to join us for a show. I know we were supposed to have you a few weeks ago, but I'm sure you'll tell us the story about what happened with that. But first to start, what our audience probably has not met you before unless they've been to one of our shows. So tell us a little bit more about you and what you do at Redbox Business Solutions.
Yeah, appreciate that. First, I'd like to start off by recognizing and honoring our veterans on this special day. So happy Veterans Day to those who have served. Much respect and appreciation for all of you out there. You know, this has been turbulent times for everybody as of late, and that service and that sacrifice is much appreciated. And yeah, so Redbox Business Solution is a concierge managed service provider. We actually received the great honor at the Vision Conference last month of Managed Service Provider of the Year through the 20. So that was a huge honor. And concierge level really describes it well, Matt. Appreciate you sharing that. You know, exceeding our clients' expectations is our goal every day. And we've got an outstanding team in the San Francisco Bay Area. We have, you know, a national footprint in terms of service. And really the most important thing to know is that we're just passionate and dedicated to what we do, to the clients we serve, and to our team.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about kind of how you got started, because it's a pretty fascinating story, and kind of how your growth has just been like exponential.
It's been pretty remarkable. We actually, well, I got started in technology back in the 90s. I finished up my degree in business management, and with an emphasis on computer information systems, which is pretty relatively emerging because this would have been in the 90s, and right kind of as the internet was getting rolled out, and dial-up was a thing, and high-speed bandwidth and 5G was not back then. And about the same time that Elon Musk was going for his internship at Netscape, I was aiming to work for one of the first ISPs out of the Silicon Valley in Bishop Ranch, and onboarded with them before I had finished. I was in the process of getting my MCSE, to give you an idea of how dated I am there, and getting ready to do my Cisco certification. So I was really going more of a technical route, but ended up making some adjustments more into the management leadership side of the business as time went on. So onboarded with this, with Barrio. They're owned by Nippon Telegraph and Telecommunications, kind of the AT&T of Japan, and just had some phenomenal opportunities from a leadership and management perspective during the dot-com boom. So that's really what started it. My husband and I, who are business partners, were in enterprise technology for years. And then we joined forces with some family business, and here we are supporting and growing businesses, which is really what we're passionate and dedicated to.
That is very amazing, and it's a very, very cool story. So we were kind of talking a little bit before the show started that we haven't when the last time we saw each other was, and it actually happened to be like right before the pandemic hit in. You were at our Dallas event. That was the last time that we saw each other in 2019, and then early 2020, and then that's when it was like literally like a week after that show, everything kind of fell apart. So how was the pandemic for you? How did that affect Redbox?
Yeah, that was interesting. Of course, the pandemic wasn't on schedule for any of us. And I was really honored and excited to come down to ChannelPro. It was so great to see you, Matt, and Rich, and the rest of the team, Colleen and everybody. And I presented on vertical, catering to a vertical market. And that was a wild ride from the time we got back. I went from there to a president-elect training seminar for Rotary, because I was turning up joining in to be the president of the Rotary Club here locally. And yeah, it just seemed like things were fast and furious from that first week of March all the way to today. So we ended up turning up a nonprofit organization right around the beginning of March, because that was my first go around with COVID, was coming back from that trip. And so got a nonprofit started because there was some need in the community to help seniors shop and to help support the community. And that's been a beautiful thing. And our team's been a big part of that. So that's been really special, on the service side of things. But yeah, so a ton of change for all of us in so many ways, a lot for the better, a lot of challenges and struggles, but we're all working hard to support folks through those in a lot of ways.
One of the things I'm curious about, because you mentioned that you've got a national footprint, and I'm seeing more of that from MSPs since the beginning of the pandemic. People started working from home, and then all of a sudden it was like, well, my customers could potentially be anywhere. And so, geographic ranges have expanded a lot in the last year and a half. Did you have a national footprint before the pandemic, or has your range kind of increased in the last 18 months?
So we did manage projects outside of our geographic through, hiring subcontractors and some partners we were connected with. But really, I would say just in the last few years, our collaboration and partnership with the IT partners with the 20 group has really made a big difference on that, because we have, trusted and strong relationships with them and operate on a similar model and kind of a standardized tool set. So that really helps with that national footprint and allows us, to deploy at a better rate and better level of kind of consistent service, if you will. So yeah, it has definitely, that offering has increased a lot since the pandemic, and the demand for it has as well.
Another thing I noticed, for those watching on video, in the backdrop behind you, there's a Redbox sign, but also a smaller sign that talks about virtual office design. And I guess you've got a website, virtualoffice.design. Is that a English business now that people are needing virtual offices? Is that something that you've kind of gotten into? And is it part of Redbox or sort of a separate entity?
Well, that is actually a separate organization, and we do help folks with integrating virtual meetings, for maximum productivity. I know you wrote an article on that, Rich, and hit some really good points there. But that is just a professional background that our team uses. So, we do a lot of things. We've presented on technology, the best technology tools for virtual meetings, best practices, that sort of thing. Because really, Rich, you and Matt and I were probably accustomed and familiar to the virtual meetings well before the pandemic with our peer group and those that are in the industry. But there were a lot of people who were not. And there were, some new platforms or platforms that were new to some folks, even Zoom, and so we went, almost what felt like overnight from folks not having a familiarity with this medium to all of a sudden it's birthday parties and reunions and comedy sessions and business meetings. And I know one day I was in front of my computer. I just did a quick tally at the end of the day because I was serving as the planning commissioner. And in Rotary meetings and in business meetings, I was in front of my system for 15 hours. I ate both my meals, at the desk, but because I had never done that before the pandemic. So I was on WebEx, GoToMeeting, Zoom, and Teams kind of all day long. So yeah, it's great. It's fantastic for efficiency, but it has its drawbacks. I had missed seeing people in person a lot. And now I like that we kind of have this hybrid environment, which we can maximize on the efficiency, but still, maintain those connections like we're doing today.
So two meals in front of the computer. What do you eat when you're working a 15-hour stretch? What do you like to have in front of your
I eat things quick. Oh, yeah.
So before we dive into the news, tell us a little bit more about you. What kind? You're in the Bay Area, so what kind of things do you do? I know you're very involved in the Rotary Club and some other things, but what do you do for? Is that what you do for fun, or do you have other things that you do for fun that isn't leading groups and stuff?
Yeah, love family first, always. I have 2 teenagers, my husband and I. So them and our extended family. In fact, I don't know if dedicating a podcast is a thing, but my sister is in Ailing Health, and she was working for the family technology business back in the day. And so if that was something that people do, I would be dedicating this to her and my family in Austin, Texas. We have an office out that way. And so for fun though, it's camping. I love reading. Unfortunately, I probably read more nonfiction and business related books than I would like to, but someday I'll get into more of the leisure reading. And watching my kids' sports really is number one. Last night I was at a basketball game, Adams Middle School here in Brentwood, conquered on that one. And so that and getting some exercise when and where is possible with the work schedule, as you all know, in technology, it's, finding that balance is a lot. And then obviously, like you mentioned, Matt, serving in the community is definitely a priority for us.
So your kid plays basketball. Is your other kid older or younger?
So I have a 16-year-old son and a 13-year-old daughter.
Oh, okay. And does she do any sports?
She's playing 3 sports right now. She's on 2 basketball teams and a volleyball team, and she plays the piano. So she's one of those underachievers. And then my son plays golf, and they're both involved in leadership and service as well.
Very cool. I think we got to get our 2 daughters together because I think they have a lot in common.
I love
lots
that.
of sports at the same time and stuff. And she plays saxophone, not piano. So.
Oh, that's awesome. We'll have to bring them on the road on a road show because, we had the kids out at Robin's Road Show back in the spring. And so great for them to see us all in action. So we'll introduce them then.
Yeah, absolutely. So now you also think you like to camp, but that's interesting. So there are 2 types of camping, right? There's I'm going to slug through the forest with a backpack and like forage for food and hunt squirrels and cook over an open fire and sleep on the ground. And then there's let's get into the RV and go to what is basically a resort, and you're like staying in your mobile hotel room. Where are you on the camping scale?
Okay, so you just stopped short of glamping, which we're not glampers. we have always been tent campers since the dawn of time. Brett and I are business partners for 20 years, and we even camped together to get off the grid. But it was always tenting, not quite backpack, although we were deep in the Sierra Mountains on a trail that was pretty rough a couple months ago. But we did make the splurge when the pandemic hit and a few of our trips got changed with the travel lockdowns to get a travel trailer. So yeah, we're kind of pushing the limit there. We're not real bougie, but the truth is we were packing up the trailer and taking my daughter and a few friends camping for her birthday this weekend.
Oh, well, fun. We'll have a good time with that. And I might have another camping related question, but I'll save that for the end of the show when we play a little 5 questions with you. But it's great you're here. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited that you were able to carve out the time. Oh, and then let's go ahead and tell the story, Rich. So Seana was supposed to be on weeks ago, but what happened? Why wasn't she here?
Well, why don't we let her tell that story? I mean, she and I spoke the day before we recorded that episode. We kind of talked about what we were going to be doing on the show. Hey, talk to you tomorrow, Seana. And then what happened?
Yeah, so we were down at Vision in Dallas the first week of October, so just last month, and went to visit family in Austin. And then from there, went to Mexico for a few days to get off the grid and regroup. Came home, had a full week planned. We had the ginormous honor of being recognized as Business of the Year, because our team just does awesome work. Business of the Year by the Brentwood Chamber of Commerce. And we had a big event that Thursday that we were getting back. We had this awesome ChannelPro podcast here with you gentlemen. We're really looking forward to that. And I was starting to get the sniffles on Tuesday. I talked to Rich. I said, oh yeah, we're a go. We confirmed everything. And I thought, just as an extra measure of caution, I'm going to get a COVID test. And I was pretty devastated when it came back negative. We had people coming in from out of town for this event. And, in the technology world, fortunately, they were able, my team is phenomenal, and they were able to put up a screen and everything else. And so it was great to be able to be there remotely, better than nothing at all. And I was unfortunately sad to miss and have to reschedule this, but so a couple sniffles. I think the worst feelings were the feelings of guilt for missing out and having to be quarantined again. And we passed it to one of my daughter's friends, which I was miserable about. So of all the symptoms, I think, that's probably my Irish background in nature there was the guilt from it. But we're all recovered and past all that now, and back moving at a mad clip.
I'm seeing a correlation here, though. It seems like every time you go to Dallas, something bad happens. Maybe you should just not go to Dallas anymore.
Yeah, and that's really not an option, right?
Well, we're glad to hear. We're glad you rescheduled, and we got a lot to cover. So we're going to dive in now, folks. We're going to hit a bunch of different news stories. We got another story we're going to talk about. Connectwise is in the news. We're going to be talking about them. Ingram Micro's got something new. We're going to talk about another merger and acquisition. Lots of those. And we're going to talk about how to hold successful virtual meetings. That'll be a fun one. We're gonna touch the high level on all these stories, which we'll kind of go through it. But there's a lot more to these. Go to if you want to learn more, and we kind of read along as we go through them to get all the details. Go to the show notes page at channelpronetwork.com for episode 206. Or if you're watching on YouTube, open the description area and you can see the links there. If you're also watching on YouTube, hit the like button and the subscribe button. Leave a comment. All that stuff really helps, and we appreciate it. If you're listening, leave us a good rating on iTunes or Google Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. So appreciate that. Rich, let's dive in. Connectwise unveils something new. What did they have?
Yeah, I was joking before about why I'm in a hotel room, but I am at a conference this week. It's the IT Nation Connect conference that Connectwise holds every year. Last year it was virtual, as many events were. They are back in person in Orlando this week. And they had their big kind of keynote address yesterday, and there were two really big, there was a lot of new stuff that they talked about, but there were two really big things that they discussed. And the first was the rollout of what is going to be the sort of underlying platform for all of their products and really their whole portfolio going forward. They are calling it, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, even though I heard it 100 times yesterday, I'm still not sure I'm getting it right. I believe it's pronounced ASIO, ASIO. Now this, if you really follow Connectwise closely, this wouldn't have come as a complete surprise to you, because at the virtual IT Nation Connect a year ago, they were already talking about the fact that they were taking their products and intellectual property and code, and all of the code that they acquired along with Continuum, another managed services company that Connectwise bought 2 years ago. And over the course of the last 2 years, they've been sort of integrating not only the people and the organization and the partner programs and all that stuff, but they've been building or integrating the code as well. And so what they've done now is produce an all new integrated code base, a single code base for all the products, from both of the companies. And this is going to be the new foundation for everything that they do. It's significant for a Connectwise partner in a number of ways. So first of all, it's supposedly faster, more secure, more scalable than the underlying platforms beneath individual Connectwise products before. But it is also, because it truly is a single code base for everything that Connectwise does, it really kind of weaves a bunch of separate products together into kind of one big product. They still, you can purchase and interact with them individually, but the idea is that you're not, they're not connected to one another via APIs or interfaces or anything like that. They are one product, and that enables you to truly have, wait for it, a single pane of glass into everything that you do with Connectwise. So that's kind of the vision for ASIO is to be that single pane of glass for you as a Connectwise partner into everything that you do, and for everything that you do to be faster and more efficient, because it's all now on an integrated code base. The other thing they announced is kind of interesting, because coming out of the Continuum purchase, one of the things that was interesting about that purchase is how little overlap there was between these two companies that had regarded themselves as competitors before. But the one really big, obvious area of overlap was RMM. Both those companies had RMM systems, and Automate, the Connectwise system, is an on-premises tool. Command, which was a Continuum system, is cloud-based, and it has this sort of outsourced network operations center service that you can tap into if you choose to as well. So coming into this event this week, Connectwise had two RMM systems. Coming out of it, they've got 3. Because they launched a new RMM system at the show here today. It's called Connectwise RMM. Behind the scenes, what they did basically is take the command code base and import a lot of the best stuff from Automate, add in some new stuff as well, and build a new product. This is their next generation RMM tool. The idea is that over time, people will migrate off of Automate, migrate off of Command, and get onto this Connectwise RMM tool, which, like ASIO, this is one of their first ASIO-based solutions. And like ASIO, this is faster, more scalable. It has certain advantages over the legacy systems here. But that is something that's going to happen over time. In fact, today, right now, there is no migration path from Automate to Connectwise RMM. Supposedly, at some point in the first half or so of next year, they will introduce that. But right now they've got 3 different products, and this is like, I guess, the good news, bad news scenario. If you are an Automate user, a Command user, you like what you've got, you are not eager to lose those products or disrupt your operations right now and switch to a new RMM system, you don't have to. Those products aren't going away. Connectwise continues to add functionality to them and update them and all that. Those are live products. But what we're seeing here, I think, is the first step in what will be, I'm guessing, a gradual process of slowly getting their partner base, coalesced around the new RMM system. I will learn more about that as we record this. I'm about 2 hours away from meeting with the CEO and the Chief Product Officer of Connectwise. This is one of the things I will ask them about. So a few hours from now, I'll understand this better than I do now, but I believe that's the plan.
So Seana, let me go to you first. So if you're ever going to consider a new RMM, I have to imagine some kind of migration path from your existing system is going to be kind of an important thing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's key. I think this ASIO platform I think it's 50 services that they're going to be kind of incorporating into this whole new platform. So that's a significant amount. And like Rich said, the idea of the efficiency of it is fantastic. To centralize everything in one location is key. I think where they might run into some trouble based on our experience as MSPs is having still command and automate, and then really trying to make sure, because those different RMM tools will hit different features for each of the MSPs, and that's kind of what we've seen, whether it's with line of business applications or other deployments, is people get really committed and comfortable in their environment, and that transition is a bit of a challenge. But if it's worth it efficiency wise, I think it's also important that they, cybersecurity and everything security and compliance related is leading all of these products and platforms these days. And they definitely have, that's a key part of this initiative and this rollout. And so I'm glad that that's part of their plan with that.
So there's a big focus right now on integration and getting a lot of these what was historically independent systems to kind of talk together to make things easier. And it talks a little bit about, as you start to get much larger and you're managing 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 endpoints, that level of integration almost starts to become a requirement. Wouldn't you say that's true, Seana? Or do you not see does that link between those systems not matter as much?
Yeah, well, we are not quite at the 100,000 mark as of yet, but I definitely think that is a requirement and will be a key factor, and to make sure that you have that scalability with any of the tools that you're working on. So, yep, great point, Matt.
So, Rich, they mentioned that they have 3 different tools now. Are the pricing, is that the same between these, or how have they positioned this? Like, if I was coming out to Connectwise now, like how would I pick which one? What does that look like?
So interesting enough, I mean, if you were to come to Connectwise now, they would probably steer you towards Connectwise RMM. So I mean, in terms of like the short-term use case, who's going to be first on board with the new RMM? Clearly, somebody who's new to Connectwise is a natural for what is going to be their RMM of the future. In terms of like the pricing and how they kind of stack up, I don't really know very much about that and I don't even know if. In fact, I doubt that that's a sort of prominent part of the conversation when they're talking to people about which of those tools they want to use. I think it's going to be more about cloud-based versus on-premises, how much do it yourself versus do it for you. The command system, and I should say Connectwise RMM, like command, has an optional knock that you can tap into. So if your business model is such that you like being able to outsource some of what you do through the RMM, that's going to push you in that direction. If you really more prefer to get deep into the configuration and the customization of a tool, you'll probably lean more towards automate. I think those are kind of the issues that will be likely to come up more often when they're figuring out which tool is right for you.
Very cool. All right, well, we'll keep an eye on it. You're going to learn a little bit more about it, and maybe you'll have a few more comments next week when we sit down and discuss. But in the meantime, we're going to shift gears and talk about Ingram Micro, and they've highlighted some tools. I guess they had a conference. What are they talking about there?
Yeah, they had, this has been such a whirlwind week that it was just as I was prepping for the show that I realized this story we're about to talk about happened this week. It felt like it had to be last week because so much has happened since then, but it was actually Monday that this happened. They held their annual Ingram Micro 1 conference, which is their biggest partner conference of the year. Like last year, they did it virtually this year. And a number of different things that they were talking about, obviously, with their partners. But the big thing that they rolled out is this new system that they are calling the flexible subscription engine. And it does a number of different things. So first of all, it's designed to help resellers who are building an as-a-service business run that as a service business efficiently with Ingram. So it's all about, subscription is right in the name. It's all about being able to offer bundled solutions to your partners that combine cloud software with hardware, sell it all as an as a service price, manage it across its life cycle as an as a service offering to your customers. There is a lot of automation that they've built into this because you could perform most of the functions this tool performs before with Ingram, but there were some manual touch points. So this is going to be a little bit more automated, a little bit more streamlined and efficient for you. And then it also kind of pulls together a lot of different things that you could do before with Ingram, but not necessarily in one place. And so just to give you an example, I mean, obviously they've had a very robust cloud computing business and a cloud marketplace for a long time. I'm going to say off the top of my head, 3-ish years ago, they introduced a totally separate warranty renewal tool that could help you get visibility into the warranties that you've sold through Ingram to your customers and the renewal dates and manage all that. So they pulled both of those things together, for example, in this flexible subscription engine. So that's instead of 2 interfaces and 2 totally different systems, that's all in one system now. And now you have a more complete picture of the business that you're doing with your customers and can manage all of it in one place. So automation, consolidation, and then a heavy emphasis on being able to do business with your customers as a service, which increasingly is how every business, large and small, wants to acquire technology these days.
Yeah, there's a lot to pick apart here. Let's talk about the subscription engine first. So, Seana, in your business, is this been a pain point managing subscriptions? Does that take a lot of your team's time?
Absolutely. Yep. And so that's a key factor for us, and I know when Bay had mentioned that, our systems, and he's referring to Ingram's, but really across the board, you can look at, SMBs all the way up to enterprise. The systems are too manual and too antiquated, and it is a labor and a time suck, and it makes a big difference, to the bottom line. So I think that it's important for organizations and distributors like Ingram Micro to continue to sharpen their tools. I mean, it's a relief to hear him say, our partners need an easier way to sell, bill, and with their recurring business, and that's key for them to continue to pivot and innovate. So, yeah, I think that it'll be hopefully. My only concern really is I can tell that they're trying to bring it to market as fast as possible, which is great. That also, in our experience, when they deploy these new platforms or new ways of doing business, if you will. If you execute it too fast, it compromises the integrity of the offering. So that's been an experience for us with other distributors. So Ingram does a great job, and we are a client. They are one of the distributors that we use. So it's definitely nice that they're putting these things into one place and helping with the subscription services. So I'm excited to learn more about it.
Yeah, I am too. Rich, now they say this is a new port. Is this a service that you have to subscribe to in order to get this, or is if you're an Ingram partner and you're selling subscriptions through Ingram that this is just the new interface?
Yeah, I don't believe this is a fee-based offering. I think that, and they will probably be encouraging people to utilize this as opposed to the legacy portals that they've got out there.
Interesting. Yeah. So there's a quote in here that I found interesting. So they say that there's a disconnect between quoting, ordering, invoicing, lots of swivel chair. Now, Seana, in your office, do you have swivel chairs? And does that improve productivity in certain scenarios?
We don't sit in them a whole lot.
If your chair doesn't swivel, does that slow the team down? Are they really doing a lot of that?
Yeah, that's the only kind of chair to have these days, right? You got to pivot and swivel all day long.
You got to have nice office. Do you have nice office chairs there? I know the ones in the picture there probably aren't the real ones that you have at your office. So what kind of chairs do you have?
Yeah, they're adequate. They're probably not as nice as our virtual office chairs, of which we don't sit a whole lot in either one of them because we're typically on our toes at our desks. Awesome. So, Rich, there were some other things that they talked about here. Is anything worth kind of diving into?
Or was
I'll just make one quick final note before we move on, which is that folks may remember that Ingram was acquired by a private equity firm earlier, at Platinum Equity. When that deal closed, one of the things Platinum emphasized was that they were going to be investing in this business. They were not going to be, looking for things to cut and get lean or anything like that. They're investing in this business. And Ingram said they want to invest that money in some of it in tools that will make doing business with Ingram more efficient and more attractive for partners. So this flexible subscription engine is the first of what will apparently be a series of engines. There are more engines coming from Ingram. They didn't provide specifics about what kind, but this is something we're going to be talking about more often, probably in the next 12 months, especially because they're going to be taking some of that private equity money and using it to build better tools for their partners.
That is more engines. Does that excite you, Sean?
Well, it does, because we need more and better tools all the time. So yeah, it's great to have the people that, the vendors and the people that we're partnering with investing in the technology, making things more efficient. And just like we're doing for our clients to help, improve their bottom line, we appreciate when the distributors and those that, those partners that we're working with are investing in that as well.
Excellent. So I have another question for you. Does Ingram how many events does Ingram do a year?
Well, the two big ones are the Cloud Summit and the One Conference. I'm sure there are some others that I'm unaware of or not thinking of, but those are the big ones.
But they do more than one.
Yes, they do.
So then why is this called the One Conference if there's more than one?
It's not even, it's one in all capital letters, the way they always render it, Well, they are at one with their channel, Matt.
Yeah, I'm not buying it. They need to rebrand that conference. It's a lie. Don't live the lie. All right, Rich, let's move on. We have another company buying a company. It seems like we have one of these almost every week. But it's pretty soon we are going to be down to one company, right? Like just Google will own everything and then that'll be it. All right, who bought who this week? Who bought who this week?
So this week, OpenText bought Zix. And before we talk about the significance of that, let's step back. As long as we're talking about acquisitions and how often they happen, vendors buying vendors, let's just sort of pull apart the pieces of this particular entity that came together this week. So OpenText bought Carbonite not that long ago. Maybe 10 months after Carbonite bought Webroot. So Webroot, endpoint security, DNS security, security awareness training, Carbonite, BDR, and high availability. And so you put those two companies together, and now you've got the makings of what they call a cyber resilience platform. So the security plus that last layer of defense, the backup. So OpenText buys Carbonite, Carbonite bought Webroot. Now let's go to the Zix side. They acquired a company, a cloud distributor called AppRiver, partly because AppRiver is a huge Microsoft cloud distributor, but it also has some security solutions of its own. More recently, Zix bought a BDR, cloud BDR vendor called Cloud Ally. You put all that together and you have a pretty extensive suite of email security and compliance solutions. Okay, so now OpenText owns all of these businesses. And clearly what they are, their strategy is to build an expansive kind of end-to-end cyber resilient kind of platform for SMBs in particular. They have a very strong consumer business through Carbonite as well. But the idea now is they took the endpoint protection and the DNS security and the security awareness training and the BDR and the high availability. Now they've added email security and compliance on top of that. And they have put together an even more expansive suite of products that kind of puts them in the conversation. So I'm at this Connectwise event, and during the keynote yesterday, they were kind of showing the breadth and depth of their security portfolio and the roadmap, what they're going to be adding to that going forward. It's a pretty big set of capabilities that they have. And a couple of weeks ago, I was at the Acronis show. Their strategy is all about building an end-to-end suite of security and BDR products. OpenText has made a pretty aggressive move here, an $860 million move in this case, to become another one of those integrated cyber protection, cyber resilience suite players.
So I'll throw it to Seana first. Do you think that the market for these types of suites is saturated, or do you think there's still room for another player?
That's a great question, Matt, because you're seeing a prolific amount, like you said, mergers and acquisitions, like on a scale that we've never seen before. And it does feel sometimes it's a dizzying array of offerings, right? And is the market saturated? Evidently this acquisition of Zix was an important element for OpenText because of the email and the data loss prevention that they offered. And it seemed to me that the two organizations catered a lot to the government vertical and both had a strong offering in the compliance regard. Does that sound right to you, Rich?
Well, I know OpenText certainly. I mean, independent of like Carbonite and Web, OpenText itself has a pretty strong public sector presence. I'm less sure one way or the other about Zix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was my understanding, is that they did as well. But it'll be interesting to see how these, like you said, a lot of M&A activity, private equity activity, and that's a great question, Matt.
Yeah, interesting. So, you said, Rich, the terms of this deal, $860 million. So it's certainly an investment. They want to join the market there. Is the Zix name going away? Are they still operating? I mean, they have so many companies now. It's like, some they still operate under their brands, some they don't. What's the future of Zix?
Well, the example that they set with Carbonite and WebRoot is that, you can still go to webroot.com, carbonite.com. Those brands still exist. There is still some independence to those entities. The logo kind of says an OpenText company or something like that, but they haven't really sort of rolled their, the holdings they already have together into one company under one brand. So my expectation would be that's what will happen with Zix, at least for now. We'll see. I don't know if that's a long-term, fact for those folks or not. But, so far, they haven't shut down any of those existing brands. And I mean, WebRoot has a pretty strong brand in the channel, and Carbonite has a pretty strong brand just kind of generally. So there's equity there that you wouldn't want to get rid of anyway. But we'll see. There wasn't a lot of detail about that. We might learn more about this, by the way, next week. OpenText is holding a virtual conference for its partners next week, and they might have more to say about that kind of thing.
Yeah, I was asking because it seems like if they were going to ever have an opportunity to like change their branding, that the word Zix fits in text really well, so they could be OpenZixed. And I think that would be kind of cool. But, I don't know. Seana, do you think that's a good name? Would that be better than OpenText?
That's a good question from a branding perspective. I don't know. I think the OpenText might resonate a little bit better with folks, but Zix has a bit of a ring to it, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it? Rich, is there anything else here to kind of dive into? They talk about a little bit about, do they highlight anything else that they're going to do short term to make this suite happen? Or is this something that's coming out later? What's the plan? Yeah,
well, I mean, this was a definitive agreement to acquire, but the deal is not actually done. I believe, if I remember right, they're expecting it to be fully closed within 90 days or so, and then there will be an integration process. So it'll be a while before you really start to see things come together. And quite honestly, I mean, we are still seeing a lot of work happening to pull together the Carbonite and the WebRoot product lines. And now we're going to kind of introduce the Zix product line into the store. I think it's going to be a while before they can fully realize the vision of where they want to go to with all of these different products they have now.
Yeah, I'm actually glad that we have someone who actually runs an MSP here on the show today, because this question I always kind of think about, and maybe we just haven't had aligned when we've had an actual business owner on. How do these acquisitions affect you? So I don't know if you're a Zix customer, but I'm sure that you've had other companies that you've partnered with that end up getting bought or acquired, because my God, it's happening every day. Does it worry you? Does it affect you? Do you think like, oh God, now what's going to happen? Or is it just like, it'll be fine?
Oh, of course. No, it's important that we do our research and our due diligence for our clients when we hear about any of the the mergers or any really major changes with any of the organizations that we're working with. So yeah, that's a key factor in making sure that there's a good, business plan, a model, and execution in place. So we stay smart. We're not a client. And it sounds like as much as anything, this is, their effort to span the SMB all the way up to the enterprise market, and really reach out to more MSPs. And so we're grateful to have a team that works hard on a lot of different levels through a lot of groups to vet out and really find the best product offering at the best value. But those do change too fast, frankly. But the idea is that it's bringing, the most sophisticated and best level of service and offering to the clients. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It sounds like definitely that email security and the compliance piece that Zix brings to the table in this is a value add for OpenText. So, but whether or not it'll be a solution, we'll investigate. That is TBD.
TBD. Have you ever had one of your products that you use or go through an M&A that you're like, nope, we're going to go to something else now? Have you had good experiences and bad experiences, or relatively it's just been okay as these companies kind of jockey together?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, being in this industry for this long, you can't touch all these different types of technology and not have that. And it's been a host of different, some have been better than others with the acquisitions. Some are more well managed and communicated, and others not as much. And that's where, I'm grateful to our team being so proactive. They call my business partner and cohort, Brett, they call him N+1, because he helped turn up the network operations center for PeopleSoft on the 580-680 corridor out here, which has become Oracle back in the 90s. And, you really have to, deploy things in the sandbox, and change management has to be a key part of all of that in order to put strategic solutions in place that don't impact the bottom line and any downtime for the clients.
Change management, interesting. That's a very interesting term. Do you have a team that just kind of, or part of your team that just kind of focuses on this, or is it just part of your company culture that you will deal with change, embrace it, tackle it head on?
It's becoming more important all the time. I mean, even we support a number of auto dealers, and if we've got a new merchant services platform that rolls out that touches the network, literally anything that's going to touch the network is going to go through our organization for any of our clients from a security perspective. So some of these organizations try to deploy their software or tools or product or whatever it is without really thinking it through. So that's really where that strategic change management and being in front of that and maximizing our value to the client is key.
Very cool. Well, it's an interesting story. We'll see what they do, Rich. I'm sure before long we're going to be talking about a OpenText security suite with all this stuff integrated in. So, folks, fast forward to episode, I don't know, when do you think that'll be, Rich? 284. Let's see if we're right. We'll make a prediction. What episode will we talk about this new security portfolio suite?
So let's make 284 the over under. And I'm gonna go under.
You're gonna go under. Seana, you want to make a bet? Over or under 284? I'm
a gambling woman and I'd go under.
She's going under. All right. Well, I'll take the over just so that way we can have a winner and a loser. And I have a feeling Rich is probably gonna be right because he's always right about this kind of stuff. All right. We're gonna. Oh yeah, this is gonna be a fun story to talk about. So we're done with news. But we got an interesting story we're gonna talk about. It's from an article on the site, How to Hold Successful Virtual Meetings. Now, Rich, until I read this article, I didn't even know that was possible.
Yeah, well, and it might not be, but here, you can get closer, folks. Here are some ways.
So tell us about this article. Where did it come from?
Yeah, well, and there are some tips in here that kind of go back to what we were talking about earlier in the show, and being in Zoom and on Teams for long stretches of time, and everyone is familiar with the whole Zoom fatigue concept. And so there's advice in this article basically about hosting virtual meetings that are going to be more effective and productive for everybody involved. And a fairly obvious piece of advice is a shorter meeting is usually going to be better on a virtual platform than a longer one. What interests me in particular about this article, and the reason why I kind of put it on the agenda for the show this week, is that it really does kind of dive into some things related to what is increasingly becoming a bigger issue, or a newer issue anyway, around virtual meetings, which is the fact that as the workforce goes from being originally all in the office to all at home to now a little bit of both, you're going to have meetings in which there are some people sitting together in a conference room somewhere and other people participating in the meeting remotely. And that means we're all going to have to learn how to do that effectively. How do you make sure that the people who are remote can hear what's happening and can be heard, that everybody gets an equal opportunity to participate in the meeting? And so there's some interesting advice in this article along those lines. There was something in here about having a moderator, a meeting leader, somebody who is kind of responsible for making sure that everybody, whether they're in the room or remote, is getting a chance to speak and is fully engaged in the conversation. What was that first piece of advice there? Yeah, and encouraging engagement basically, and making sure that the people who are not in the room understand that they are every bit as valued as attendees of the meeting and the people who are there. Just a few weeks ago, Matt, it may have been like 3 weeks ago, HP introduced this whole product set, this whole audiovisual conferencing solution with components for the conference room and for home and cameras and audio. And a big part of what, the problem they were trying to address is just that. It's like, how do you hold a hybrid workforce meeting such that everybody really feels fully engaged and participating? And so here's some less expensive advice that doesn't require necessarily implementing a whole new conferencing system to kind of make some headway along those lines.
Well, if I was making conferencing hardware and solutions, I'd want to say go buy a new conferencing solution first. That's how you do it. No, so there's lots of points to get in here. Encouraging engagement is one. They talk a little bit about meeting length. Seana, I actually want to turn it to you because a lot of these are maybe not obvious. I'm sure your team does, or at least had to do a lot of virtual meetings and probably does now do some hybrid meetings. What have you learned?
Yeah, we have weekly team meetings within our group. We have virtual business reviews with our clients regularly. Some business engagements are done through that, and accountability groups. You name it. And I loved this article, Rich, and I think that it's so important on a lot of levels because it's kind of like common sense is not all that common sometimes. And I was on an accountability group recently where somebody was in traffic and hoot and hollering and all that. And so some of it is just, I think this has two parts. One is the technology for the larger businesses. And the other one is actually the meeting format. And when it comes to the technology, there's a lot of news out for, some of those larger collaborations that are happening in the hybrid or virtual mode. That's been a big challenge. I helped launch a hybrid kind of platform for our Chamber of Commerce out here. They went to us as the tech solution locally. And, it was kind of just working through a lot of those when you've got a large audience and at the same time, an audience at home, and making sure everybody, like Rich said, feels included. That's really important. And for the virtual only meetings, some of it is etiquette. A lot of it is engagement, because you want your audience and your stakeholders to be involved in what you're doing, and also bringing them into the conversation and making everybody be a part of it, but keeping an agenda and keeping things short. One of the other suggestions is using the tools of the platform. I think is great. You know, the hand raising, the emojis, so you get that engagement and that interaction and that feedback that otherwise you do get that in person a lot more from the body language and the ability to segue into things a little easier in the physical format. So I really think it's the way of the world is going to be more hybrid and virtual meetings for efficiency reasons. And I'm excited about that. But also, you know, missing the in-person also at the same time.
So as far as best practices go, I'm sure your company has their own best practices that they follow. You mentioned etiquette, which I think is an important one. What about where do you fall on cameras required, cameras not required?
So I'm not a big fan of requiring or mandating anything, period. I do think it's professionally appropriate to be on camera, just like it would be at a meeting. You know, I think that's a lot of that has to do with your mindset and your delivery and who you are. Rich has this awesome looking suit on, you know, you got your good looking shirt, your mic, and that's a big part. It's one of the, you know, the visual that you're bringing in there. But I have been on meetings. I was on a meeting yesterday on a very high level strategic partnership, and you know, and not everybody always is on camera, and so there's a variety of reasons for that. I understand that, but I do think again, when you go back to the etiquette, it's probably a smart move. Yeah.
Any other tips that that you could share, or any thoughts about best practices that Redbox uses that makes your meetings better?
Well, it depends on what the goal of the meeting is, right? I think that's really key, because I think to keep things light and fun and engaging, we like to incorporate a little bit of music, you know, just 30 seconds to roll us into something, kind of helps set the mood. And we do level 10 meetings that are based on an EOS model from Traction. And so that helps keep us on point and get a good read for where everybody is. So I think that helps a lot in the virtual environment to really kind of get a feel for, you know, a temperature read on everyone.
One of the suggestions in here was that you should pair somebody with a meeting buddy. Do you guys have meeting buddies?
No, we don't, but I like that idea.
Do you have now, if you get a meeting buddy, do you have to get that person like a Christmas present?
You should always, yeah, a little something.
It's like back to kindergarten. No, where's your hallway buddy, Timmy? So that's pretty funny stuff. Well, cool. Well, folks, there's lots of good advice here in the article. We could kind of dive into all of it, but it'll be easier if you just go find the show notes for episode 206. Go read this and comment. And you know what? We would love to hear from you on this, because I'm sure everybody is having to deal with virtual meetings. Like, they are now a part of life. You will have virtual meetings now for the rest of your life. Congratulations. We would love to hear more tips, thoughts, suggestions, best practices that you've discovered that work well and help make your virtual meetings better. If it's meeting buddies, if it's other things, what are those things? We want to know so we can make this list better. So how do you do that? So comment, if you're watching on YouTube, comment below, let us know your thoughts. Otherwise, send us an email, podcast@channelpronetwork.com. Send us your ideas, send us what was worked for you, because we really would like to hear those suggestions. Well, that's going to wrap it up for the top part of the show. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to have a great interview segment with Abe Garver and Willis Cantey. We're going to talk a little bit about the M&A market, its current conditions. If you're looking to buy companies, what should you do if you're looking to sell companies? Unfortunately, Seana, we had to record this earlier, so Seana was not able to be with us for this interview, but she will be back with us on the other side. So enjoy the interview, and we'll be back in a little bit. Stick around. We'll be right back. And welcome back to part 2 of ChannelPro Weekly. You know, consolidation is everywhere. In fact, mergers and acquisitions have been top stories, it seems like, almost daily for the past several years. Now, given recent events of the past few years, maybe you're thinking the time is right to sell your business, or maybe grow by buying another. Well, is it? Well, here to discuss the current conditions in the MSP M&A market is Abe Garver, Managing Director and MSP Team Leader at Focus Investment Banking, and Willis Cantey, the CEO of Cantey Tech. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Welcome.
It's great to have you on with us. Will, let's start with you. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about you and a little bit about what you do at Focus Investment Banking.
Great. So I'll start. Willis Cantey. I'm CEO of Cantey Tech Consulting. we're a team of about 80 folks, and we're focused on growth. We've recently become a platform, which I'm sure you've heard about on your show. We're really looking for a lot of great partners that are also focused on growth, from the Texas area up to the DC area, along that stretch. A lot of the MSPs that we're talking to want to stick around, and that's what we're looking for, is folks that the team wants to stick around, that they want to stick around and grow with us. And it's our plan that we've been on the Inc. 5000 for 9 straight years. We're coming up on 10, we hope, and want to keep doing that and learn from the folks that partner with us, and also share some of our growth strategies with them as part of that platform.
Well, fantastic. And it's great to have you on. Thanks for joining us. Abe, now let's switch over to you. Why don't you tell us, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Matt. And so Willis, I'll start by saying Willis and Cantey Tech has been a very successful client of ours this year in 2021. As Willis said, Cantey Tech is a 9-time consecutive Inc. 5000 fastest growing company, MSP. And our area of expertise, how we got connected with Willis, my team at Focus Investment Bank, a firm of about 80, 40 M&A advisors, and about 15 of us focused on MSP transactions. We were super fortunate last year to close MSP transactions with 25 parties. We have been a catalyst and launched 8 platforms like Willis's business, and we have 7 MSPs under signed letter of intent at this stage in the process of closing, and kind of about to have a double from what we did in this past year. So that's kind of background on myself and kind of relationship with Willis.
Now, Willis, when did Cantey Tech get off the ground? How long have you been going?
So we started in 2007.
2007, and then you're working with Focus Investment Banking in what capacity?
Yes, so they helped me. I knew at one point, our management team got together and talked a year ago, and we said, we've got this growth strategy. How do we get there? And we knew that organically we could grow, but that mergers and acquisitions would also have to complement that to get to this goal. And we set a 10-year, $100 million goal. To do that, we're going to need to bring on other partners as well. And I looked at doing that myself. I looked at it, can we borrow money from the bank? Can I use this? And you can do that once or twice, and then you run out of money, and then the bank starts to say no. So
well, then you got to start going to the other kinds of bankers that will like cut off your hands or something.
Yeah, that didn't sound like the right fit for us. I like both of my hands. But what we did is I looked at about 11 different potential partners. And during that process, I met up with the great team at Focus. And Abe and I had really had a good experience in going through this. And then I found the right partner, but they helped me with that process. And part of that goal was to make sure when the process was done and we sign up with the private equity partner, who's LNC Partners out of Northern Virginia, it's a great group, that we're on great terms and we're ready to focus on building this business. So that closed July 7th.
July 7th, yep.
So I was on the other side of the table, like a lot of the potential companies that I'm talking about 5 months ago.
Wow. And so your growth strategy now is M&A, right? So you're looking to acquire other partners, or how is that working?
Well, our growth strategy is twofold. Of course, we want to acquire other companies. And again, these are companies that want to be a part of something bigger. We are integrating, we are doing this together, and we want everyone to come over. But secondly, our growth strategy at Cantey Tech doesn't stop, right? We're continuing to expand into new markets and to do new things for our existing clients and look for new clients. So it's not just our growth strategies only through acquisitions. We want to continue to grow and continue to bring on companies that are growing as well.
Gotcha. Now, in the money that you borrowed, did you put it in a big giant vault and like try to swim in it before you spent it on other companies?
You know, it's funny. I bought a new pair of tennis shoes. I always said that when we had a great transaction that I would get new shoes more frequently because everyone loves a new pair of shoes.
And he got a beautiful little tidbit. He got a beautiful cashmere sport coat from Focus Investment Bank before the transaction closed. They to wear to the closing dinner. So the two of us wore this really nice. It was just beautiful sport. I saw this sport coat and I'm like, Willis is such a sharp dressed guy. This guy, I need to get this. I need to get this blazer for him.
So I did get a new pair of shoes. I was given a sports coat, which was very aggressive because the deal hadn't even closed.
We
and
were
he
really
said,
like
"Go get it."
2 months away
Yeah.
from it. It was like, I think right after the signed
Yeah.
LOI, I was like,
You could have been out of, Abe could have been out of sports coat, and I would have said, "Look, I'm not
And
giving
I
this thing
didn't do it.
back."
this is gonna go.
Well, and you got to give him cashmere too, because you got to dry clean that. So he's got to stay with you to get the rest of the money
Yeah.
so he can afford to clean the thing.
Anyway, I will tell you what gets you most excited about this is that this is the real opportunity, and my job has changed. I get the opportunity to talk to new business owners, to folks that are thinking about either today or down the road, what might be next and what a working with a platform could be like. And I love that. So it's much more exciting about that piece than some type of check or some bank balance. It's the idea of really growing this thing and learning from partners and building something better.
Abe, I kind of want to start with you. So, and let's just start with the definition. What is a platform in the context of what you do?
That's such a great question. So a platform is a company that has reached an operational maturity level. It typically, some of the boxes that get checked are, it has approximately at least $2 million of what's called adjusted EBITDA or profit or cash flow. It's operationally mature in that. So for instance, Willis's business to have been Inc. 5000 fastest growing for 9 years consecutive, it's got some special sauce. And what's happening in the platform transaction, private equity groups, let's say, will raise a fund of $500 million, a lower middle market private equity group, raise 500 million, and they're going to make 10 platform investments, each of about 50 million of equity. And so you think about kind of like a 2.5 million of EBITDA in total with leverage would of the 50 million, perhaps half of that is invested right out of the gate. And then there's additional capital that sits on the side. So with Willis's business, he's got a private equity group, LNC, that has a checkbook that's allocated to making add-on acquisitions to both for geographic density, for strategic reasons. He may get more into cybersecurity. He may get more into CMMC, that the cybersecurity maturity certification. It's really like Willis and LNC's playbook to get to design this incredible company that will, kind of blast off to the next level. He's already had that success as a private, closely held business, and now he's really positioned his whole business, his employees, his customers, to just catapult up to the next level.
I'll give each of you maybe a chance to comment on this. So in August, S&P Global Market Intelligence said that there's just shy of 2.3 trillion with a T dollars of capital sitting in private equity funds looking for investments. It's not all going to IT, it's not going to MSPs,
right?
But there's a lot of money on the sidelines out there looking for an investment, and a lot of money is going into MSPs. Anecdotally, when I talk to MSPs, the M&A market right now is at least as hot as it's ever been.
Absolutely.
As two people who are living in that world day to day, I'll start with you, Willis. I mean, is that your experience too, that this is an unusually active, aggressive mergers and acquisition landscape?
I will tell you, crazy is a word that I would feel comfortable throwing around at times, but these are the rules of the game, and so these are the rules we will play by. I still get, and as a independent MSP before we became a platform, it was every couple of days you'd get a letter or an email or a LinkedIn request or something else. And, we'd love to talk
they're
to you
still
about
even
this.
coming after
And
the
they still happen. People
because
say,
people don't know, they don't get their lists updated.
well, they say, I've researched your company, I've looked into this. Well, of course, and it's okay. So now I'm doing some of that outreach, and I have to sound a little bit different. There is a lot of money that people want to put into this. But what I would encourage every MSP is it's not just the money, although we want to be competitive on every level, and that includes those terms and financials. But it's also, who do you want, in our case, who do you want to be working with for the next 5 to 7 years?
Yeah.
And if I could get 10% more, but not like the people that I was with, well, I'd be miserable, and sorry I did it. So that's one thing that we're trying to do as well, differentiate ourselves in the way that we operate and the way that we train.
So, both of you are involved in buying and selling MSPs. What are the characteristics that are most in demand now? What is most going to drive up an MSP's valuation?
So it's interesting. Great question, Rich. Like we're sitting here, we're coming to you live from IT Nation Connect 2021. And at dinner last night with Ramsey, who's the head of M&A for Evergreen Services, which is a MSP backed by an Alpine fund that has started with 100 million. They've done now 39 MSP acquisitions. And at dinner last night, we asked kind of Ramsey, my sell side client said, what do you value about us? Like what's most important? And Ramsey's answer, and I think it's very instructive because he's done 39 acquisitions, is his top answer was, you are in a Connectwise peer group, and you've been invested in that. I think this client back to 2018, so for 12 years. And so that people are involved in the peer groups, be it Connectwise. There's some other ones, True Methods, I think, which is owned by Kaseya now, owned by Kaseya. The peer groups are just phenomenal to help you. Historically, there hasn't been geographic competition between MSPs, and a peer group member who's just killing it in one market could communicate with, one of his peer group members and say, I'm doing this, it's really working well. And as a result, it lifted up our entire, kind of industry. So number one, join a peer group. Number two, kind of doing benchmarking. Service Leadership, which is a company that Paul Dipple, Connectwise has acquired, does benchmarking. And then the most important thing that really Willis did is organic growth. Your organic growth, especially of recurring revenue, it being exceptional, kind of like getting to the Inc. 5000 fastest growing. So that's number three. I'd say number four is total amount of EBITDA or profitability. The larger the EBITDA of the MSP, the greater the valuation will be. And then fifth, and very important, is the retention of the revenues. So just because Willis grew this so fast is great, but then very sophisticated institutional investors look at the business and say, is he retaining that revenue? And so retention of revenue and retention of logos, both of those things, like Ramsey and others of us look at when we prepare a business like Willis's to go to market. We're going to look at those 5 things off the top. And if you find somebody that is, is charismatic, like, compliment Willis, like that's charismatic and wants to, he attracts people. That's a 6 kind of intangible that I'm looking for. And I think I remember saying to Willis as I was meeting him, like, you're the kind of person, Willis, that people will want to join your journey, and the private equity group wants to back that, and not somebody that's, kind of likes being, and there's nothing wrong with it, like being at a desk by themselves and not with, kind of out there attracting other people just magnetically to the platform.
Well, you can see why Abe is the best at doing this, because he makes everybody feel great about themselves. I want to say that Cantey Tech, though, all honesty, is a great company. We're proud of what we built, but it is a company. It is not a cult,
team. Yeah,
right? It is a team. And so
absolutely.
One thing that when we were talking with people, it wasn't just the CEO, I promise you. It was, they saw that we had a management team that could handle growth, right? That could bring on other groups and integrate them and lead. So part of this is having that great team. Churn, like we talked about, is a huge negative, right? It's very hard to grow, of course, when you're losing clients. You can be having a great sales organization, but if you're losing them, it's hard to continue to grow. And then employee churn, right? Clients and team members have a vote. And if they are leaving you, then you're in droves, you are doing something the wrong way. And that can be corrected. Not that we're perfect, but that can be corrected. But that's something that I look at. How fast are people walking out the door, and how fast are clients walking out the door? And you can have a very profitable business and still have that, but it's not a great business.
Are there other red flags like that that you keep an eye out for?
Well, those are always the canaries in the coal mine, and they can be quantified. We're not typically looking out for all of the red flags. I do take a close look, and I like to understand how the owner, with the you can learn through the questions they ask how important the client relationships are and how their team is treated, and frankly, how much of this is a team effort versus just their effort. So we're looking for real organizations that are team run. So there's some of those scenarios. You just have to, you always learn, they learn from the questions that we ask them, and we learn from the questions they ask us.
Yeah.
What about you? Other red flags, Abe, that you see?
You hit on a big one, which I don't think a lot of people look at, which is the in the same way we're looking at customer retention, logo retention, employee retention can really, like, it can signal if a company's been making acquisitions and they're losing a lot of their employees right after the transaction. And so, I think it just also, there's a company I'm in the market with, and like I've got 5, 6 different indications of interest or bids right now. And I've probably had 20 to 30 or 40 calls with this entrepreneur. And I'm still learning stuff about his business. And one thing I learned today on a call, like in the past, has been in business 20 years, and the business has blasted off over the last 5. And I didn't really, there's a market he's going after, CMMC, this project Model S. And I learned on this call, it's really like, I think there's a high correlation. His son, Matt, started 4 or 5 years ago as the director of business development, and his son, David, started in first HR and then kind of overall like COO. And the two of them together, I think there's a high correlation between why his business has blasted off from a growth perspective. And I never really understood that. So like there's this perpetual, the buyer doesn't have all the information that the seller has, and the seller doesn't have all the information that the buyer does. And really we're working to help try to, make that information more transparent to each side. And even sitting in the M&A advisor chair, I'm learning, like, as we go. I don't have perfect information about my client or the business at the time. In the same way you as the buyer on your first call with them won't know as much as you know right before you close. So it's just this perpetual discovery, and there's absolutely going to be red flags all over the place. It's kind of like the health of a human being. Like, we can see each other, we look healthy. When all this due diligence goes on, you're bound to find we all have some, kind of issue, and it's being resolved. And kind of like how people, in the same way, like how we treat our bodies and we're healthy, like we do exercise, we get good sleep, kind of that sort of stuff.
So this is a good analogy. A business is like a body. Once it hits 40, things start to break. You always have some problems, right? There is always a bad knee or issue with your ankle or a shoulder problem. Every business has some problems. It doesn't mean that the owner has run it into the ditch or they're doing something wrong. It's just good to get those out there earlier, because I will tell you, during diligence, the truth comes out.
Yeah.
And so why not talk about the truth to begin with? And one thing I've learned is LNC and I look at businesses and evaluate different businesses. It's that there's always a piece that requires a little bit of explaining. And I encourage business owners to say, hey, let me get this out there. And the spring of 2018, we lost 2 really big clients.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
And it's because we made a mistake with them, and one of them was bought by somebody else. But you get it out there, and it makes it easier to understand, as opposed to finding it all through detective work.
Yeah.
Right.
The other advice too is, like, I'm going to be in a session with 4 PE-backed platforms, their founders and CEOs moderating the conversation. And as we did our prep in advance of that kind of meeting, what I heard all of them say, kind of the question was, what advice do you have for sellers when they're talking for the first time? And unanimously, all four said, if you are, please be transparent with us. If you want to retire in 90 days after the transaction, tell us and we'll give you the best offer based on what your objectives are. But don't play a guessing game with the buyer and say, oh, I could stay in for 4 or 5 years to try to maximize, thinking that's going to maximize the value of the business. Just be transparent with the Willises of, kind of the world, and let them know really what's on your personal roadmap. And then he and LNC can design, the right kind of path forward for them.
To build on what Abe's saying, in the end, what everybody's looking for is the right fit.
Mhm.
So if you want to stay in this for 5 to 7 years, say that. If you really want to stay in this for 1 year and then work it, say that. And it's important to have that understanding from the beginning, not just because your deal should be structured that way.
Yeah.
The party wants to do it. There will definitely be surprises of some kind. We haven't had any yet, knock on wood.
Yeah.
But I was also transparent with them in the beginning about what I wanted
Right.
and what I thought my team wanted.
Yes.
And
Hey, it looks like we had a little bit of a connectivity issue. This is always the woes of doing the show from the road and various strange networks all over the place. But we're going to try a hotspot and see how it goes. Rich, I'm going to send it back over to you to kick us back off.
Okay, thanks, Matt. So this might be a difficult question to answer in a generic kind of way. But
Sure.
I sense that there are a lot of unrealistic ideas about the multiples that a selling MSP can get. I mean, if you were to establish any guidelines, at X MRR and Y EBITDA, you can expect Z kind of a multiple. I mean, help me sort of understand what's realistic out there right now.
Okay. And it's this whole topic of valuation. It has been fascinating to me ever since I was in middle school buying Apple computer stock, which at the time I got $1,000 worth, which turned out to be worth, I sold it, unfortunately, turned out to be worth like 8-9 million now. So the whole question of valuation is so fascinating. And it's so fascinating that that's really where I've put my whole career to make a market. So there's like, as Rich, as you're asking, kind of like looking backwards, we can look at past transactions and see of MSPs, I would say starting at about $500,000 of adjusted EBITDA or like kind of profit. Multiples start at about 5.5 times that 500K. And the multiples go all the way up to, they've gone as high as 18x, 18 times earnings for $20 million of EBITDA. So there's this big kind of, hockey stick up of valuations, depending upon how much EBITDA is there, how much organic growth you have, like Willis's business, how much revenue retention there is, and logo retention. And then percent recurring is the other just kind of most important thing that made all this private equity money jump into our market is the recurring revenue. And average recurring revenue in those businesses that I just said kind of trade for 5.5 times earnings up to 18. Average recurring revenue is somewhere between 50 and 60%. With exceptional ones. There's one I was on a call today that we called past couple of days that has 85% recurring. And so I kind of say to the seller, hey, you're above average and this probably gets a premium for that percent recurring. Did that was that it?
Yeah, no,
Okay,
very helpful.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, for either of you, have those multiples been going up in the last year, 2 years, 3 years, because there's all that money out there going after MSPs?
Yes, I would say like platforms, I've seen, it was really like Q1 of this year, there was a step up for platforms by about 15 to 20%, the valuations raised. I could just feel the multiples and kind of how you feel it. Like, for instance, if 10x was if 2.5 million of EBITDA was going to trade at 10x for 25 million, and I would put it out to a few buyers and there would be buyers at that number. When the pool of buyers just became larger and larger and larger and larger and larger, you kind of say to that such a large group of buyers, hey, you need to come in at 10.5 to, I've got 15 people that want to talk to this platform, and you need to come in at 10.5 if you want this. And so, like, the market, I feel the pressure of the market to move the price to where there's a balance of the supply and demand.
Right
And
now,
so
would you say there's more companies looking to buy or more companies looking to sell right now?
there are way too many companies trying to buy, and they're here at the deal crawl. I've been at Connectwise. We're doing a deal crawl Thursday night. I volunteered to help with the deal crawl to bring buyers and sellers together to have kind of a speed dating. And it's hilarious. One of the people said, this isn't really speed dating. This is like The Bachelor, because there's 57 buyers signed up and only 7 sellers. And the 7 sellers said, hey, I don't want this spotlight on me and feel all uncomfortable. And so three of my sellers are kind of like, I don't think I really. So it's huge imbalance it's getting worse before it's getting better, because like 4 days ago, 4 people at a private equity group called me and said, basically, we have $400 million of equity that we want to put into an MSP. There are no MSPs to even put 25 million into, let alone 300 or 400 million. And so it's just like we're just getting flooded by private equity money, and there's just not quality assets.
And I want to say this too. I've been there. I remember when the multiple was everything. What is the bottom line multiple is? But when you're going through this, I just want to tell you that $1 is not $1, right? You tend to think, oh, here's the multiple I get. But that buyer, frankly, they may be looking at getting efficiency out of your business, which sort of means firing those people that you care about and letting some folks go and jacking up prices on your. So you might not want that top piece, especially if you're going to stick around and see the people around you get cut. Secondly, you may get this offer, but typically there's the opportunity to roll equity into the deal, but that equity is not always the same, right? We care a lot about this, that we're aligned with the partners that we're looking at working with, and it's the same. There's not a lot of tricks to it, but the higher you go up, the more careful you need to be, because they're expecting something for those astronomical prices. And frankly, that I'm not entirely comfortable with it. And so we try to be competitive on all those fronts, but also we try to be fair on our terms and not have gotchas when the deal closes.
And this second point that Willis just made is really, really important. Like I want people to understand, like when we're saying there are way more buyers, in over half of these transactions, the sellers are rolling a very material amount of their transaction consideration. So it's kind of like I sell my house, but I'm going to roll that money into another house. They're rolling the money into the business backed by the private equity group. So if something sells for $20 million, they're not taking the 20 million and putting it in their pocket. They're maybe taking 10 million off the table, paying off some debt, and rolling another, $5-6 million into the new co. So it's not people. What's happening here is not people cashing out. They want to join a platform like Willis's, where there's going to be a second bite at the apple in the next larger, like when the next larger private equity group comes in. So that's a really important context. Like, people are not selling out of their MSPs and leaving and getting out of the business. They want to stay in it. This is a way for exceptionally high growth businesses like Willis to keep even growing faster to keep perpetuating it with more capital.
And one thing too, and if you're rambling on this, just
No,
give me
this
the
is
sign
good.
and I will stop. And I love the fact that we had a little internet connectivity issue because it's not just a technical issue. This is the life I've chosen. It's technology and it has glitches. So it is perfectly appropriate that that happens sometimes. But what we see is when you are part of a platform and you are early on the platform, you have the opportunity to join up with the group at the ground level or at almost the ground level.
Yeah.
So there's the real opportunity to make a higher return than if you're joining up with one of these platforms, which are well run, and I know a lot of them and respect them. But in a year or two, they're gonna make that second bite of the apple. And so you'll get a bump. It'll be great. There's less risk there, but you're not going to get the same return on your rolled equity that you will get when you join up early on in the platform in their life cycle.
And so that brings up the question of timing, which I wanted to ask you about.
Mhm.
So, you know, huge imbalance between buyers and sellers right now. It's a seller's market for
Yes.
MSPs. That won't be true forever.
Mhm.
And so for somebody in the audience right now who's kind of thinking, what's my timeline like to take advantage of what's going on? When have I waited too long? I mean, what kind of advice would you give people on timing?
I would say everybody should start like it on the same day that the faster you can learn how to make your business more valuable, the better. And so if you try to pursue a transaction and it doesn't work, you'll learn that your financial statements need to be accounted for under GAAP. And if you showed up on the first go around and your financial statements weren't accurate, you're going to learn and put processes in place so that the next time you go through it, they are accurate. So there's every attempt at a investment I would encourage everybody to always take, you know, in an organized fashion. And I said this on a interview with Willis, you know, just in this past month. Willis really did the right thing. He got, like he was talking about, he gets a call every week or two from a buyer. You as the business owner, like that can be incredibly distracting. And Willis did this masterfully, better than anybody I've seen. He had a file folder of all the people that had called him that were interested. And when he decided the time was right to grow, he opened up that folder. And guess what? 3 different people, including myself and my firm, got emails returned from Willis all within 24 hours. And we knew Willis was ready to do something. So it's, you know, be strategic and thoughtful about, don't just respond and don't, like, focus on growing your business, not on entertaining all these calls until you really feel like you need to be there.
Yeah, it's worth understanding what you should do to prepare your business, which is nothing drastic. Continue to run the business in the successful way you've done it. But we joke around, is out of that world of 20 people who might want to invest in your company, each of them only wants 5 hours of your time, right?
Mhm.
So all of a sudden, a big part of your day is going through and answering that. So think about what you want first, and then it's okay to talk with folks. And even if you don't want to do it today, it's worth not just finding out what your business is worth, but what this process looks like. And that's an easy call. And I'm happy to talk to anybody, of course. And of course, Abe knows everybody in the business and is happy to talk with you as well.
You know, we've talked a lot from the seller side. Rich, I'm going to ask one question. I'm going to throw it to you we have time for one more after this. We've talked a lot about the buying side, and now we're kind of talking a little bit about the selling side. And Abe, you mentioned that, you know, there's a lot of buyers and there's not a lot of quality assets. Let's say there's an MSP out there that wants to sell or wants to get involved in a platform like Willis's. What can they do to be a quality asset? What do they need to do?
What was the question?
So what can a seller do to be a quality seller, to present themselves in the best way and get their business on the right track?
Yeah, I think just having even having like a 10 or 15 minute conversation with myself or another M&A advisor, and pick somebody that has done at least one MSP transaction before, somebody that's kind of gone through it to give advice. And I'm going to do an article on this actually, kind of how to pick an M&A advisor. And my top number one requirement is pick the M&A advisor who has done the best job of promoting themselves, because it's that same skill set. If I'm successful at promoting myself, if I take Willis's business on and advise Cantey Tech, it's that same skill set I need to promote his business with all these buyers. And so that it's a very subtle key thing, but like, go do a Google search on the M&A advisor and like kind of figure out, if I can't promote myself, Willis and nobody else should hire me.
Okay, well, with that, I want to thank you guys so much for being on with us. I know we've been having some connectivity issues, and I think if you're having a hard time hearing me, and it's been a little bit garbly, but thank you so much for being on. Hopefully we get you guys back to talk about it again. In the meantime, Willis, if people want to learn a little bit more about you, more about your platform, where can they go? How can they find you?
So would love to hear from you, would love to connect with you. Check us out at candytech.com. You can call me anytime. My cell phone number is 843-478-0394. Call me anytime. The telemarketers do. So I would love to hear from real people. And thank you for your time. I sincerely enjoyed this.
Fantastic. And Abe, same question to you. If people want to get in touch with you, where can they learn more about you and your business?
Yeah, just so abe.garver@focusbankers.com.
Sounds simple enough. Thank you guys so much for
keyword search on my name. Thanks.
Perfect. Yeah, and we'll make sure we'll put links in the show notes for everybody.
Thanks a ton.
To get easy notes. So with that, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be wrapping up the show with some regular features on the other side. So stick around. We'll be right back. And we are back with part 3 of this episode of ChannelPro Weekly. An awesome interview with Abe and Willis. Rich, I know we've been kind of plagued by tech issues this show. We kind of got dropped in the middle of it there, but we managed to make it work. But amazing content. Really, really smart guys. Willis is a very dynamic character. He was very fun to talk with and listen to. And you want any takeaways from the interview that you'd like to highlight or suggest people might go back and take a second listen to?
Oh, I mean, there are a lot of things that you could pull out of that are really interesting. I don't think I fully appreciated how great the imbalance is between buyers and sellers before. I knew that it was very much a seller's market if you are an MSP, and that there is a lot of private equity capital chasing after MSPs, and that, if you are a well-run MSP, you are getting contacted by private equity firms on a regular basis. But I don't think I fully appreciated just how desperate the buyers are right now to find somebody good. I was talking with Abe after we recorded that interview, and he was talking to me about a company. It's either a company he's aware of or a client of his that has $300 million just stacked up, ready to go. They are eager to go out and buy one of these managed services platforms. And, they're having to kind of accept the fact that the kind of company they're looking for is just not that plentiful, right? Like, can you imagine how frustrating it would be to have $300 million and not like nobody wants it because there's no one to appropriate to spend it on. I think that's what you're seeing from the buyers right now. And then it was also just really interesting meeting Willis, because I think he is representative of a phenomenon that we're going to be seeing more and more of, which is the very successful MSP who sells to private equity and then works with the private equity partner to buy other companies. And so he was a seller, now he's a buyer. And I don't think that's unique to him. I think that's a phenomenon that we're starting to see. So it's a really interesting time in the M&A market for MSPs.
For sure. And this is an important thing that I got to get out there. If there is anyone out there that's sitting on like $300 million and it's burning a hole in their pocket and they just need to get rid of it, I'll take it. It's fine. Just send it my way. You won't have to worry about it again. You won't have to think about it again. Just let me know. Just send me an email, podcast show. I'll even share a little bit with Rich. I'm sure he wouldn't mind either. And Seana, you were on the show when I made this declaration. Let's just go 3 ways: 100 million each, and we're good.
100 million wouldn't be near as frustrating as 300.
Right. Yeah, we got to spread the aggravation around between the three of us, but we'll take it on if we have to. This is our burden to bear. We'll bear it for you. No problem at all.
Just because we care, people.
So, Seana, have you ever bought companies? Have you been through that process where you've been out to grow and you found another MSP to buy?
We have not. We've investigated that avenue from a growth perspective. We're really growing internally in a big way. We've been working on refining our operations for a number of years and our service delivery, which we feel is absolutely top notch. So it's something we're investigating in the future. We've started a number of different organizations, but really haven't acquired any at this juncture. But hopefully that'll be on our next podcast 284 or whichever one we've got coming down the pipe.
Right. Well, if you are starting to think down that road, definitely go and listen to this interview and get in touch with these guys because they're very, very smart people and they know what they're doing. All right. So, Seana, I'm glad you're here. This is your first time on. I don't know how many shows you've listened to, but there's a little game we like to play at the end to have a little bit of fun. We got a few games that we play, but the one that we're going to play with you today is called 5 Questions. It's one that everybody likes. Let me tell you how it works. Basically, Rich and I will come up on the fly with 5 questions. The shtick is that we don't think of these in advance. We do have to kind of come up with them as we go. I mentioned earlier I was going to ask one about camping. I think in order to keep it real, because I did think of one. Well, Rich, that would be thinking of it in advance, so I can't do that. So I'll think of a new question, but we go back and forth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to ask you these questions, and I guarantee you they will not be on topic. They will be ridiculous in some cases, but nothing to embarrass you. No gotchas. It's just to learn a little bit more about you and have fun.
Okay,
ready?
I'm ready.
All right, she's ready. Rich, question number 1 to you.
Well, I'll go ahead and ask a camping question. I mean, when you go camping, is the point the hike? Is the hike really the sort of highlight of the trip, or do you guys fish? Do you bird watch? What do you do in addition to the camping itself?
Great question. We do enjoy hiking. Really, the main goal is to get off the grid as much as possible, although we are still connected and available. But just to take in nature, and we do fish. My husband, my daughter, my son more than me, full disclosure, little kayaking. Just sitting around the campfire, relaxing, cooking. We're big foodies. So the goal is to eat and relax as much as possible in between a little bit of remote work here and there.
Interesting. Good. I like that. All right. So question number 2. In the event of an emergency, let's say your house was on fire and burning to the ground, okay? And you, on your way out, you can only grab one thing, okay? That's super important to you. And you can't say pictures because those are all digital now. So don't say pictures because that's cheating. Something else that's other than photographs. What do you grab on your way out the door?
So the children and the dog do not count.
Let's assume all living creatures are fine except for goldfish.
Living creatures are off the radar. That's a great question. One thing, I mean, I'd hate to say my technology because, I'd actually be ready to jam away from that. That is a really good question without the living creatures. Let me get back to that. Let's go to the next one.
Okay. Question 2 on pause. Rich, question 3.
So you're in the Bay Area and you're a foodie, which makes me think maybe you're into wine as well. Is there a winery or a wine growing region, or do you have any good wine tips for me in your neck of the woods?
Well, we're not far from Napa Valley. And actually, I have a friend, we were in the restaurant business during college with actually Outback Steakhouse. And so we had an opportunity to visit Napa and Sonoma a number of times and go to Sterling Vineyards and Silverado Vineyards. I would recommend, if you're in the Napa Valley, Auberge des Soleils has one of the best views of the valley. That's not actually a winery, but it is next to Rutherford Hill Winery. But the Silverado Trail in Napa is beautiful. It's been impacted by the fires. which has been rough for everybody there. But we have a great winery locally here. In fact, they just had that Chamber of Commerce event that I was not able to attend in person, but it's beautiful, Serendipity. So I'll give a plug to that here in Brentwood. They're doing a great job, and their wine is fantastic. So that's my recommendations on the Napa Valley and the wine culture. But it's a big part. Brett, I don't know if you know, is from Murphy's, California, which is the foothills, kind of up towards the Sierra Nevada, and that's becoming quite the viticulture region as well.
Gotta love a good wine. The one thing I'm very jealous of people who live in that particular area is their proximity to Napa, because the wine scene there is just absolutely amazing. So if you live in that area, there is no excuse to ever drink a bad wine, because there's just so many good ones.
True.
All right. Question number 4 to me. We'll come back to question number 2. We'll save that one for the end. You said earlier that when you were kind of getting into technology, it was like the early stages of the internet. So name 3 websites that you visited in the 90s frequently that you really liked that may not exist today.
Wow. Okay. We could do a whole segment on this. So when I was in the 7th grade, I'm going to say, actually, I got a message from a friend on Halloween that said, Seana, remember the garage parties we would throw at your house? Because my dad was in data. I started pulling low voltage cable and wire and punching down on a 66 block when I was 13 for my first job, right? So when we threw Halloween parties as teenagers, we'd be moving around large reels of 25 pair cable and Commodore 64s and, relocating all the tech. And so the first, I'm not sure if it was officially a web browser, but it was called Prodigy. Are you familiar with that? Mm-hmm. It was before there was any high-speed bandwidth. And I don't even think dial-up was common, because that would have been, I don't even know what year that was, in the 80s, in the late 80s. So that was before the internet had launched to the general population anyways. So, but yeah, web browser, I think one of the early ones, I think my first email account was an Earthlink. Everybody was using AOL at the time. And, Netscape was kind of the browser of our tech support department anyways at the time. And yeah, bringing back so many memories. And we worked on Ruth's Chris Steakhouse's first website. Was one of our first, I think that was the first site that had ever maybe launched gift certificates. So working kind of just as e-commerce was getting rolled out. So it was really neat. I mean, that was a heyday. That was a .com. We were hiring pizza guys as they were coming in and putting doors from Home Depot in a professional services offices on workhorses just to get people to sit and turn up the computers. And it was really, really exciting and a neat experience to have. I don't think I really fully understood the impact of it on life, to be in that environment during that time.
Well, and there wasn't as many websites back then as there. I mean, like now there's basically an infinite number of websites, but there was so few websites, like you could actually put them all in a book. So was there any like favorite sites you had that you used back then?
We're talking pets.com, so this tech support department that we turned up, I think it ended up being about 70 people that we hired and got trained on web servers and we had webmasters, that's what they used to call them, calling in. So favorite sites, I mean, it was back then, it was more recipes and jokes, and it was just a very different, that was there was not a lot of sophistication to it back in the day. I mean, I remember when pets.com rolled out and a few others, and there's always, a lot of variety. So, yeah.
Very good. Rich, question number 5 to you, and then we'll sneak back to number 2.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you the question I want to ask, but I probably shouldn't ask it. So I'll just put it out there and move on. Seana, you're a member of the 20. The 20 was run by Tim Conkle, who Matt and I and you all know very well. A very interesting and colorful person. So I was going to ask you for your favorite Tim Conkle story, but he's not here, to defend, represent himself. So we probably shouldn't do that. So how about this? The other thing we haven't spoken about is that you, if I remember right, do a lot of business with auto dealers. So you spend a lot of time around cars. What is your favorite car ever that you've either owned or just wish you owned?
The Jeep Wrangler from college. Yeah, I would have to put on a ski parka and big gloves to drive that sucker to work in my 20s. So yeah, that was definitely my favorite car. And I'm not a huge car person per se. I love business and I love the heartbeat of a dealership, coming from some background with technology and then the restaurant industry a little bit to make ends meet during college. I like businesses that are demanding and you got to kind of keep moving and adjusting. So as far as Tim Conkle goes, a great colleague and friend, I really admire him. And I don't have any stories that I wouldn't tell otherwise, but he's got a good values that he adheres to and keeps it colorful and fun and engaging. And I think that that's really important to find that balance between the authenticity and connecting with people, and also how, maintaining that level of professionalism and education when it comes to the technology. So yeah, just all good things to say, at least for the sake of this podcast. He's great.
Tim he's a great guy. He's a very funny guy, and but also very smart too. You look at him and you may not see it right away, but he is a very, very, very smart man.
Absolutely.
Very cool. So, let's go back to question number 2. So you're running out of the house. It's on fire.
Yeah.
Grab one thing that's not living.
It's sitting on my end table in my bedroom, and it is a letter that my daughter wrote to me as an assignment about her hero. So that would be the one thing that I would grab.
I love it. That's a great one. Very cool.
Yeah.
Good one to grab. Gotta love the letters. All right, cool. Well, thanks for playing 5 questions. I hope you had fun, folks. Do you have any suggestions for? No, we're not going to say that. I'm not going to say that at all. That would be not in the spirit of the game. But if you do have any questions for Seana, or if you have any feedback, let us know. podcast@channelpronetwork.com is the email address. Rich, why don't you tell us what we might have missed during the week and what might be coming up ahead in the future?
Yeah. Well, a great place to catch up on stuff you might have overlooked over the course of the week is our weekly In Case You Missed It post, which appears every Friday on ChannelProNetwork.com. It's written by our own James Gaskin. This week, he's going to be talking about a very interesting development we didn't even talk about on the show, which is Apple getting into the MDM market. New software, an updated edition of the RMM tool from Ninja One. McAfee sold for $14 billion this week. And something else that James and I haven't agreed on yet, something that'll make you laugh at the end of that post. I'm not sure what it is. I have a hunch it might have to do with some weird Christmas-themed things that we both came across this week, but you'll just have to check out in case you missed it to find out. So coming up next week, well, first of all, we, Channel Pro, are hosting our next virtual event. Actually, originally it was meant to be a hybrid event, both in-person and virtual, for folks in the Southern California area. For a variety of reasons, we decided to go virtual only on that. It takes place November 16th. All sorts of great cloud and security content information about the new normal in managed services. If you want to learn more about it, go to events.channelpronetwork.com. Because it is virtual only, there's still plenty of room, so go ahead and sign up. We hope to see you there on Tuesday the 16th. Gradient, a pretty new company, a newcomer in the managed services world, is holding its first partner event next week. It's called the Gradient MSP Leg Up event. Could they have some product news in conjunction with that event? Wink, nudge, nudge. You'll have to find out next week. And then SureWeb is going to be doing a live webcast next week with a product roadmap. I have a hunch we're going to learn some interesting things from SureWeb as well next week. We will have all of that for you at ChannelProNetwork.com.
Sounds like a lot. You don't want to miss that event, folks. And I know what a lot of you are there thinking, like, oh no, they're doing an event. That means there's not going to be a show next week. Not in this case. The event's on a Tuesday. It's all virtual this time, so we're able to kind of not have to travel. So Rich and I have decided we are going to do a show next week, so you will not miss one. And of course, with Thanksgiving coming up, we didn't want to miss too many shows. So there will be a show next week. You won't want to miss it. It's going to be awesome. Rich, do we have a guest lined up?
So our guest host is Scott Beck, who has been a guest host before. So it's the return of Scott Beck. And the interview guest is the return of Jay McBain from Forrester. We should have a very interesting conversation with him. He's going to talk about the top 10 trends that he sees coming for managed services that MSPs need to be aware of.
Awesome. That sounds like a show you don't want to miss. So tune in next week for that. Seana Fippin was our guest today, CEO of Redbox Solutions. Redbox Business Solutions. Seana, it was great to have you on. I hope you had a lot of fun.
Oh, the pleasure was all mine. Absolutely, I did. It was a great way to round out the week. You gentlemen are always a joy to work with, and I really appreciate the value that you bring to MSPs like us, as well as vendors and just the technology marketplace in general. Always with seasoned precision and a good balance of humor as well.
Well, thank you so much. And for those who want to maybe reach out to you or get to know more about your business there, how can they find you? How can they follow you? Where are you at?
They can just reach us on that place that we all hang out, the World Wide Web, www.getredbox.com, GETREDBOX.com.
And are you on any other socials?
Pretty much all of them except for TikTok, because my daughter won't let me go there.
Fair enough. So look for her everywhere there. You don't see the TikTok logo and it'll be good. So Seana, thank you again so much for being on. It was a pleasure to have you. Can't wait to have you guest with us again in the future.
Looking forward to it and seeing you gentlemen in person again as well.
Yes, for sure on that one. ChannelPro Weekly is the show. Subscribe to it everywhere podcasts are found. We're on Spotify, iTunes, or what Apple Podcasts now, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever it is, we're there. If you watch on YouTube, you can find us there. Channel Pro Network is the channel, so subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell to get notifications, and again, like the episode, put a comment in. It really helps out a lot. Thank you very much, and of course, let people know. Like, don't keep this to yourself. It's a great show, right? You need to tell your coworkers. You need to tell your family, your dog. No, you don't have to tell your dog. We don't have a lot to offer the canines out there, but no, but do tell a coworker, tell a friend that you work with that there's a great show for them as well, and then you can have something to discuss with. Be a lot of fun. Of course, ChannelProNetwork.com is the website. Go there each and every day for the latest news, articles, white papers, resources, things that will help you make your business better, help you make more money, or keep you on top of what is going on in this ever and quickly changing industry. That's the place. You're not going to want to miss it. And of course, events.channelpronetwork.com to learn about our upcoming events. Join us Tuesday. I know it's the LA West show, but it's virtual, so anybody can go. So make sure you subscribe or join the event and join us on Tuesday for that. That'd be great. Don't want to miss it. And with that, we're gonna say goodbye, but we will be back next week. See you then.